All right, I think we're live. Welcome to another edition of my YouTube Bitcoin broadcast. I am Anders Kargard, and I'm going to take you through one of the presentations that I have done at my Bitcoin meetup in Los Angeles. Um, all right, let's start screen sharing. Um, All right, I am screen sharing now. Okay, so really what money is a unit of account and a medium of exchange. Um, and whatever is the best unit of account and medium of exchange in the world or in a specific region usually gets to be the money of that region or the world. Um, Unit of account means it's the way of keeping track of prices. It's what you use to price things in, like different goods and services, and the value of your savings, like your home, etc. Um, Also, yeah, like your savings. So the one thing that I think is very important and is so very overlooked is the fact that uh, the value of money alone comes from the fact that it's the unit of account and the medium of exchange. Um, it is the fact that people need to have this to buy things in that gives it value. If people didn't need to have it to buy whatever goods and services they need or house, etc., then it wouldn't have any value. So money gets to be valuable because it is what is decided in the world or in a country, that it is money, and that is whatever is the better unit of account and medium of exchange. And that is something that is just overlooked today, in my opinion. That um, it is really a matter of whatever is the better unit of account and medium of exchange. And the value alone comes from it being that. Now, um, if fiat currency, as we know today, like dollars, euro, etc., was not legal tender by law, it would pretty much be worthless. It only has value by law or force, as some people say. In late 2016, India made the two highest nominated currency notes invalid, which was 86% of their fiat currency, that then lost all of their value, um, unless you could document where you had received or earned this money from. But if you had made it years ago and kept it as your savings, you wouldn't have, of course, track of where you got it from, and then that value was just stolen from you by the government, you could say. Um, Before US dollars, it was gold that was money, but that was made illegal in 1933 in United States. It's now legal again, but in 1933, you had to, by law, sell all your gold coins, gold bullion, etc., to the United States government. The earliest money we are aware of is rare seashells. It had no other value than being rare, because which gave it stored value, and the fact that it was a unit of account, it was used for pricing, it was a medium of exchange, it was portable, it was fungible, and thereby great money. It wasn't used for anything else, these seashells, than being used for money, because it was the best um, unit of account and medium of exchange that was in existence at the time. So that is a good example of something only getting value as money, money only having value simply because it had the best money properties at the time. Then later, gold came, and that has ruled for thousands of years, or at least a few thousand years. as the best money, really until 1933. Um, it had the same properties as seashells, but at the same time, it was more durable and it was more divisible. And anytime people see or the world discovers a better money, a better way of keeping track of prices and storing um, uh, wealth, in terms of it being durable and not like seashells being able to crack, then the world will go towards that money very fast, or fluctuate towards it. People say that gold has value because it is used in electronics, but why then did it have value before electronics? Um, People also said that it has value because it is used in jewelry, but it's quite the opposite. People use it as jewelry because it has value, and the reason it has value is because it has the best set of money properties that makes it the or made it the number one money of the world until 1933. Simply, yeah, it was the greatest money until then. Um, so anytime the world has seen a better money, the people's societies and the world will gravitate towards it. As I will display later in this presentation, then Bitcoin by far um, is the most superior store of value, the medium of exchange the world has ever seen. And stopping Bitcoin from taking over is like fighting the gravity of a black hole, in my opinion. Now, I just want to stop sharing for 2 seconds. Right. And I will share screen again. All right. So if you compare currency and money, then currency really is great as a medium of exchange, a unit of account, etc. It's portable, it's durable, it's divisible, and it's fungible. But it has no capability to store value. Um, well, if you think so, I would say you're fooling yourself, because it's not scarce. To store value, something needs to have scarcity. And when governments print more currency every year, well, in fact, every single day, it just is not, it cannot be a store of value. So to be real money, to be something that you can store your value in, first of all, it does need to be portable, durable, divisible, and fungible. And when whatever is best on those four um, properties will also end up being the medium of exchange of choice and unit of account of choice. And then that becomes the money in a society, if not around the world. All right, short intro to Bitcoin. The supply is limited to 21 million Bitcoins, of which already more than 16.7 million has been minted into supply. It has been mined, it's called. And this is what makes it Bitcoin possible to be money, because it has a scarce number. It's not just printed every year into oblivion. So the eternal inflation left in Bitcoin for the rest of time as we know it is 25.25%. And that's going to be spread between today and the year approximately 2141. And after that, there will be 0% inflation in eternity. And then Bitcoin becomes deflationary, where the value of Bitcoin goes up as society produces more goods and services. Since a money usually would match the value of the production, then you have to take into account, of course, the velocity of money, the speed of money. But as the 21 million will have been reached, and as production we can suspect will continue to go up, it will be deflationary. Ethereum, on the other hand, which is the number two um, cryptocurrency after Bitcoin, will surpass this 25% inflation rate or inflation in already 4 years. And after that, it will keep on going with no cap, with 7% every year as inflation. So in my point of view, viewing that as an investment without understanding the fact that it's maybe even being diluted faster than fiat currency is maybe not such a good idea. Or you might be kidding yourself. Each Bitcoin is divisible into 100 million Satoshis, and with something called side chains, it should be possible to divide it indefinitely after that. Then there's the miners. They facilitate the transactions in the Bitcoin network. So if um, Joe wants to send Bitcoin to Susan, then he's using his Bitcoin wallet. He's sending it to Susan, but it's the miners that actually make sure that Susan receives this Bitcoin and that Joe reduces his amount of Bitcoin. At the same time, they're securing the network with something like, it's been a while since I have seen what this number is, but it's something like 700 plus times the combined global computer power of Google, which already is a lot. So you can imagine the amount of computer power which is actually um, um, securing the Bitcoin network. Then there's the developers. They are some of the smartest people in the world, no doubt. Some of them have been working on developing the internet and are now working on further developing Bitcoin. It's open source, so nothing gets included unless it's checked for if it's malicious or not, to keep it clean and safe. So peer review is a very important part of the work that they do. Um, if we ask ourselves what gives something value, then gold is valuable, collector items are valuable, diamonds are valuable, etc. And in my opinion, the one or the two things that give something value is a combination of utility and scarcity. So it's gotta have a purpose for something, and it needs to have scarcity. If it doesn't have both of them at the same time, it will not have a high value. A good example is oxygen and water, which is something that we really, really need to be able to survive. However, because they're yet not at the level of scarcity, they are not as valuable as gold. But if we didn't have hardly had any oxygen left or hardly any water left, it would quickly become way more expensive than gold, of course. Um, so really, those are the two things that are necessary to give something value, and that's where Bitcoin has the scarcity with the 21 million, and it has the utility because if you look at the properties of Bitcoin as a medium of exchange and as a store of value, it is superior, and I'm going to look at that later, and that's why it has this to take over as the money supply of the world potentially. If we look at the United States dollars, but the picture is exactly the same if we look at other fiat currencies around the world, then in 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created, um, then and then 100 years into the existence of the Federal Reserve, then the United States dollars has actually lost 95% of its purchasing power. Um, And this is not because the utility of the dollar as a payment has dropped, but it's because the scarcity has dropped. So one of these two very important um, elements or properties for something to have value, which was scarcity and utility, one of them has been highly diluted, and one of them is highly diluted value goes down with the same property. Um, Now, if we look at sound money, it needs to be able to store value, and it also does need to have capability to be a medium of exchange, storing value, which needs scarcity. We have things like silver, gold, diamonds, real estate that has location, medium of exchange. Today we have paper money, we have electronic money like in your online bank, you have credit cards, yet they don't store value as they are printed um, every single day, essentially. I don't think there's one day where the printing press of fiat stands still. Maybe in the weekend, but that's it. But sound money really is Bitcoin that has the scarcity and also can definitely operate as a superior medium of exchange. If we do, oh, I made this small analysis of store value, the different stores of value that we know of as today. If you look at the top, then we have silver, gold, diamonds, location, real estate, and Bitcoin. And then on the left, we're looking at different properties of a store value that a store value ideally should have. Then looking at maturity, liquidity, can it be confiscated, amount of new or exclusive use cases, mobility, inflation left, or at least inflation known, and value growth potential left, which is very much goes hand in hand with inflation left. Then probably the most important of these is whether an asset can be confiscated or not. The world has never seen an asset that cannot be confiscated. Bitcoin is the first time that the world has seen an asset that no one can take from you, and that opens up a lot of new use cases, and therefore it fulfills a need and gets a lot of value actually. So already, as it is right now, Bitcoin has, I would say, a better store value list of properties than the other store values that we know, like gold. Yet gold is around 8 trillion US dollars in value, and Bitcoin is around what is it, 300? Let's just let's see. Bitcoin today is around 240 US dollars in market cap. So Bitcoin has to go up something like, what is that, 32 times to reach the value of gold. And since it's a better store value, I don't see why that is not very likely. Of course, this is no financial advice. You have to do your own research. This is only my personal thoughts and input to you in your research on what you want to do. And remember that the cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin can go to $0. There's no guarantee for anything. If we look a little bit into the future, say 10 years into the future, I would say it's very reasonable to say that the liquidity of Bitcoin will be 100% in place. It will also be more mature, and it will be by far an extremely superior store value, which I already consider it as, but for sure, if we go a few years into the future, that will be the case. Looking of Bitcoin as a medium of exchange compared to the other mediums of exchange that we know, paper money, electronic money, and credit cards, on the different properties that a medium of exchange can be evaluated on, like fungibility, which means that one unit is as good as another. Today, it's possible to do chain analysis on Bitcoin, where if one time a person has associated his or her name with a Bitcoin address, it can be tracked what they're doing with the Bitcoins, where a US dollar that passes through your hands, nobody knows if it was involved in a drug deal two transactions ago. So that's fungibility. And Bitcoin is not 100% fungible yet. So actually, when governments and banks say it's used for terrorism, it's used for drug dealing, it's absolutely terrible as a medium of exchange for illegal purposes. Fiat currency like US dollar, euros are a lot better for that purpose. And let's face it, terrorism and drug dealings have been doing just fine before Bitcoin came along in 2009. Liquidity also, Bitcoin maybe is not fully mature as a market, so it will take maybe 1, 2, 3 years before Bitcoin potentially is fully liquid and everybody is in possession of Bitcoin. But on a lot of other, on all the other properties, Bitcoin really is superior. The fact that it cannot be confiscated, global mobility, speed to China, and another extremely another extremely important point is censorship. Again, it's the first time that we have a store value or a value that you can exchange, like transfer to someone else, where nobody can go in between and censor that payment. Um, and an example of that is WikiLeaks, that in 2010 was blocked from receiving money by US government. SWIFT was closed and credit cards were blocked off so that they could not receive funds the traditional way. But then Bitcoin had come along 1 year earlier, 2 years earlier at that stage, and opened up the doors for someone like WikiLeaks to actually receive money, Bitcoin as money, and kind of prove the use case for Bitcoin. Now, I'm not saying for or against WikiLeaks. I'm just using it as an example uh, uh, for what Bitcoin can do. It has this property of not being basically being censorship resistant. Um, if we go a few years out, fungibility will be solved in Bitcoin, liquidity will be solved, and it will be, uh, by all accounts, by any accounts, the best medium of exchange that the world has ever seen. And therefore, also because all the other properties as a money will be in place for Bitcoin, it will be the best unit of account. And trying to stop Bitcoin from taking over as the total money supply of the world will be like trying to fight the gravity of a black hole, in my opinion, which of course could be a wrong opinion, but that's my strong conviction. Conclusion. So nothing is written in stone, but in my personal view, definitely Bitcoin is a superior store value today. It's a superior medium of exchange today. The fungibility is just maybe 12 months away, if not 6 months away through Lightning Network. And it just makes Bitcoin a superior money. And that means that it will be what people start using and adapting, and seeing the value going up 20x the last year maybe is not a coincidence, but is people starting to exiting fiat currency and going towards gravitating towards, like I describe it, this superior money that now exists in the world. And in fact, if you look at the growth rate of Bitcoin in 2017, even despite the fact that it has dropped recently from $20,000 to what is it now, $14,000, if that speed of growth, value growth, continues for just 2 more years, then Bitcoin has the same value as the global M3 money supply plus gold in the world. So if you want to consider if hyper Bitcoinization is real or not, I would say, well, if this speed continues, then we are actually in the middle of it and it's all over at the end of 2020. Um, so uh, and that actually, by my calculations, put Bitcoin around 6 million US dollars a piece, which of course is not an investment advice, and it can also go to $0. But looking at it in those terms, that is what would be the price of 1 Bitcoin. That is provided that fiat currency doesn't hyperinflate and is printed even faster, because then the price in denominated in fiat, of course, would be even higher. But let's say in today's fiat value, it would equal $6 million US. Buying Bitcoins, there's different ways of buying Bitcoins. You can buy Bitcoins through ATMs scattered throughout the world. You can buy it through localbitcoins.com, where people can meet in person with complete privacy. And there is exchanges like, for instance, Gemini.com. And then there's also trading companies. I personally know a guy who's really, I consider a friend of mine, that I met a few months ago. And his company is FinCEN registered, and they sell Bitcoin to people who are interested in buying. They need to be vetted, and of course they need to do the due diligence. And then the advantage compared to the exchanges is that, well, first of all, there's no upper limit on the amount you want to buy, which is usually an issue on exchanges. If people want to buy from more than a few $1,000s, there's no upper limit given 48 hours. And also there is full 100% phone support, text message support, email support. He will be there for you if you want to ask any questions and so forth. Now you gotta, of course, be very careful securing your Bitcoin. Paper wallets is one thing that is recommended by people. Personally, I don't know how paper wallets are created, and you need to make sure that if you create them on a computer, that computer is not connected to the internet in any way. You never want to have your backups code, essentially the seed, exposed digitally to anything online, because then hackers can access your Bitcoin. What is recommended for most normal people is cold storage hardware wallets like Trezor as the best solution. And there's a picture of it here. And they were the first to make the hardware wallets, Trezor. And that is supposedly a very safe way of keeping your Bitcoins. But you do need to educate yourself with Trezor, like with any hardware wallet, and understand how it works and how you fully utilize the security of it. Have more than one copy of your seed in safe places, not near you, and use passphrases as well within the Trezor. Now, recommended independent Bitcoin media. Here are some of my favorites. Tone Vase, Jimmy Song. You can post this and you can have a look at it. World Crypto Network. Andreas Antonopoulos, definitely. He's the one who has shown the light to so many people. Weatherman I Am on Twitter. Block Digest on YouTube. And Twitter in general is a fantastic source for Bitcoin news. In my opinion, it's time for Plan B in the world. I believe it will be a better world with a monetary system that is not diluting what people have in their hands every single day. It might be what can bring back the middle class in countries like United States, and not only benefiting those who print the money from a Federal Reserve where there's nobody knows who owns it, and it's not audited. I think Bitcoin is definitely a better plan for that. Thank you very much um, for your attention. Now let me go to the stream. See if there's any questions. There's not. In that case, I will end the broadcast here. Um, I'm going to iterate on this presentation. Um, I have already some ideas, and I look forward to go through it again in an improved version for you guys. All right, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.